Enjoy what feels like a mixture of some classic video games and unique horror that delves deep into the characters involved. Still Wakes the Deep delves into characters in a way that will fully engross you, helping you to feel connected with the world, with impeccable voice acting that draws you further into the atmosphere. If you're a fan of character-driven stories or want a bit of horror in a compact package worth every penny, give Still Wakes the Deep a try. Our reviewer Joe Parlock likens it to Amnesia, Alien Isolation, Uncharted, and Left 4 Dead. It's an intriguing tale that's got a great story for a horror title. Dragon's Dogma 2 proves the value in a sequel, expanding on everything from the original game but taking it all to unprecedented levels. You and your pawns will have as much fun exploring the world as you do with the combat and unique class vocations. What really shines though are the unique NPCs, side quests, and a story that'll leave you wanting more. You'll have unexpected twists to contend with as you mull over the nature of your pawns and their morality. The late game reveals and surprising NPC interactions that have some of the most ridiculously fun outcomes make the game truly feel alive, adding to its epic narrative. When you think of games with a sensational story you won't be able to get out of your head after completing them, you will probably think of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for years to come. With improved gameplay and a story with twists and turns that even players of the original game won't see coming, Rebirth is a masterclass in video game storytelling and character development, fleshing out iconic characters, competing in tons of mini-games, and watching a classic story unfold in a familiar yet new way all culminate in one of the best stories you can play on the PlayStation 5. Ichiban Kasuga is almost too good to be true. As far as protagonists go, you won't find anyone more pure than this lovable guy, and his adventures always find him making new friends and proving what it means to be a good person. Like a dragon, Infinite Wealth takes Ichiban and friends on a journey of even bigger proportions, this time leaving Japan altogether as he takes a trip to Hawaii. New friends, new relationships, new problems, and familiar faces make this game's story one of a kind. So with tons of side content and mini-games that are well worth your time investment, Infinite Wealth will have something for everyone to enjoy. Still, with everything you can do, the story here is just as engaging as our introduction to Ichiban Kasuga in Like a Dragon. Games don't need to tell epic tales to have a good story. Sometimes, something easy and fun to get into, surface level but entertaining, is enough to be a good story. Predictable though it may be, Unicorn Overlord is a great example of a good story that's still simple and easy to follow. Join Alain and his ever-growing band of resistance fighters in the Liberation Army to save the nations from being destroyed by Galerius. Aside from the main story, there are side quests where you learn about even more characters and even party conversations between your recruits that are well worth seeing as you invest in this band of heroes. It doesn't hurt that the gameplay is excellent as well. Since 2015, the Life is Strange series has provided some excellent narrative experiences. The self-contained True Colors is the series at its best due to its powerful storytelling and beautiful visuals. In the game, you play as a young woman named Alex Chen, who visits a small mining town to reunite with her older brother. She's a very likable protagonist with the supernatural ability to feel other people's emotions. It ends up being a useful power as, after a disaster, she needs to use her skills to uncover the seemingly wholesome town's dirty secrets. As you'd expect from the title, this game revolves around Marvel Comics' hilarious band of misfits. Star-Lord is joined by Rocket, Gamora, Drax, and Groot as the team attempts to stop a mysterious force called the Promise. It's a tale filled with twists and turns, which you get partial control over as the game includes several important choices. Regardless of your decisions, you will still witness a mixture of brilliantly written laugh-out-loud and tear-jerking moments delivered by talented voice performances. From a gameplay standpoint, you primarily control Star-Lord, but you can order your allies to use their special attacks on the litany of enemies you face. Outside of combat, their skills can be used to solve several environment puzzles. Both the gameplay and story are enjoyable to experience. The basic premise of the second Horizon game is that the protagonist, Aloy, has to travel into the Forbidden West region in hopes of stopping a dangerous blight. However, the title tells a multi-layered tale featuring a bunch of different subplots, many of which focus on the title's brilliant cast of characters. When you're not watching the game's compelling cutscenes, you're usually participating in some third-person RPG action or exploring the giant open world. In combat, you take on a variety of different animal-like machines, and to defeat them, you must take advantage of their various weak points. It's a clever and unique combat system that complements the engaging narrative. Even with its shorter length, the medium's excellent pacing manages to squeeze a complex amount of detail into its horror mystery narrative and leave you with plenty of shocking and disturbing twists. The storytelling style is also unlike anything seen in previous horror games. The main character Marianne not only communicates with the dead but exists within their dimension at the same time via a split screen. The story begins with Marianne's loss of her foster father and builds on the secrets of her family history and the origin of her supernatural ability. Her answers appear to lie somewhere within a haunted resort called Niwa, a place with a dark past echoed by the ghosts whose memories you can access. While you encounter more friendly spirits, such as a sweet young girl named Sadness, the looming threat of a giant hostile entity known as the Maw is not far behind. Control is a great game if you're a fan of a story with mystery and science fiction elements. It takes place in New York, with you playing a character called Jesse, tasked with caring for a mysterious extraterrestrial threat called the Hiss. It's similar in style to the BioShock series, but also introduces an amazing physics system. It's making it one of the most satisfying gaming experiences in recent years. The storytelling is a real highlight, and if you don't get lost, it has one of the strongest narratives on the PS5. The characters are great too, and do a lot to cement the charm that oozes out of every part of this unusual game. Yakuza Like a Dragon was one of the best RPGs of 2020. And the PS5 version is a fantastic experience for fans of the series and newcomers alike. Set in the underworld of Japan, one minute you'll be bashing heads, and the next you'll be relaxing at the arcades or singing karaoke. It's a weird game, but in an era littered with bland, grey adventure games starring middle-aged white guys, Yakuza Like a Dragon stands out amongst the crowd. Its characters are great, with Ichiban being arguably the best protagonist the series has seen so far. If you have never checked out a Yakuza game, you owe it to yourself to try out Like a Dragon. The Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection bundles the final installments in the Uncharted series, and both games deliver poignant stories featuring incredible action. A Thief's End is a cinematic adventure with some of the best moments and character development. It takes you around the world in search of Henry Avery's treasure and explores the deeper ties into Nathan Drake's family, with his older brother Sam at the center of it all. On top of new characters, Uncharted 4 introduces many new mechanics, allowing you to drive a car in more open-world areas and swing from a rope during combat and when scaling the landscape. The Lost Legacy sequel follows Drake's acquaintances Chloe Fraser and Nadine Ross, who are later joined by Sam Drake on the hunt for the Tusk of Ganesh and are up against one of the series' most ruthless villains. The Last of Us Part 2 is available on PS5 through the remastered edition, bringing new life to a classic tale. It takes place just 5 years after the first game, presenting a new story featuring Ellie, but it moves the narrative in a completely unique direction, creating some incredibly emotional moments, both good and bad. It might not quite top the first game, but it is a worthy successor in every way. The combat is certainly more refined, and the characterization of the various new people you'll meet on this journey is leaps and bounds above that seen in the original game. It remains a must-play game, not just for its story, but for everything that surrounds it. Marvel's Spider-Man received a remaster alongside the release of Miles Morales, and it's every bit as good on PS5 as it was when it originally launched back in 2018. It has one of the best versions of Peter Parker across any media and has a great story full of twists and turns as you swing and web your way to the game's ending. It also has one of the best traversal systems in any game, well, ever. Insomniac Games lets you loose in an incredibly well-made New York City, complete with landmarks like the Empire State Building in Central Park. The PS5 version is equipped with instant load times and makes great use of the next-generation DualSense controller. Its story may be a little cheesy at times, but it is a comic book game, so would you really expect anything else? If anything is going to outrank Spider-Man, it would be more Spider-Man. This continuation of the story from both the hit 2018 and the Miles Morales side game manages to intertwine the stories from both while moving forward with both new and familiar problems. It does it with expertise too, making for one of the most filled out and emotionally engaging stories available on the PS5. The sequel begins with the arrival of Kraven the Hunter, who is taken to Manhattan to hunt the most dangerous game, man's supervillains. His hunt eventually leads to the release of Venom, the alien symbiote with a violent hunger. It all weaves around side plots about Mr. Negative, the terminally ill Harry Osborn, and several other well-known villains from Marvel lore. Get ready for one wild ride with this one. A remake of one of the greatest RPGs of all time, the Final Fantasy VII Remake makes great use of the additional power offered by the PS5 with performance and graphics-based modes, alongside quicker loading times and DualSense features. This chapter covers the original story up to the escape from Midgard, but includes a lot of extra content and story not seen in the original. It's the best action RPG available on the PS5, and the exclusive DLC episode is as high a quality as the base game itself. If you're looking for a story to get lost in, look no further than Final Fantasy VII Remake. A Plague Tale: Innocence is an emotive dive into the relationship between a brother and sister, and it has some fantastic writing and thrilling gameplay that will keep you on the edge of your seat for the entirety of your time with it. You spend your time avoiding the Inquisition, as well as the horde of rats that follow your every step, all while searching for the cure to Hugo, Amisha's brother, who has been ill since birth. The game's focus on stealth gameplay and player awareness makes it a great proposition if you're looking for a slower experience, with the power balance between you and the antagonists of the game being heavily weighted against you. A Plague Tale: Innocence is a great game, just make sure you have some tissues beside you while playing it. Hades is a tough roguelite and one of the best the genre has ever seen. For a roguelite, it has a surprisingly deep narrative, with layers of story to untangle and all the relationships between the game's numerous characters. The visual style is gorgeous too, with each of the underworld's locales having unique and rich environments for you to explore. There is even the chance to rest between areas and take it all in. On top of the near limitless levels of content to find and unlock, it will take you 10 complete runs if you intend to find Hades' real final ending. This isn't a small game by any means. The focus on Greek mythology is brilliantly done too, with characters such as Hades, Zagreus and Aphrodite all being brought to life in this fantastic take on one of gaming's fastest growing genres. With a narrative campaign that stands on its own, Diablo 4 eases you into its established world and lore, soon leaving you enthralled even if you haven't touched any of the previous games in the series. The vivid exploration of dark and disturbing atmospheric settings during main and side quests, the gorgeous cinematics, excellent writing, and powerful voice acting certainly don't disappoint. You may be called a wanderer in Diablo 4, but you're not a hapless character that's defenseless. You can choose from several classes like Druid or Necromancer, and then further level up to gain new gear and be your best against enemies. Sanctuary is also a pretty wide space filled with many allies, in addition to the threat of Lilith and her followers that are wreaking havoc on the land. 2018's God of War showed how the series can seamlessly pivot from a traditional hack and slash to a narrative masterpiece, and the sequel comes back with a story presenting higher stakes and a lot more dramatic elements than a father-son journey to Jotunheim. The prophecy of Ragnarok has begun, and Kratos is left to assemble allies to thwart the impending doom and Odin's legions, while also trying to fix the crumbling relationship that now stands between him and Atreus. The new story in God of War Ragnarok will take you to each of the 9 realms, bringing with them droves of well-designed enemy encounters and stunning locations. There's also an increase in the challenging main bosses you face that makes it feel as though you're back to the older entries, but with a more elevated narrative style. And your time with Mima remains as enjoyable as ever. If you enjoy pure high fantasy revolving around warring nations, mythical beasts, and sorcery in a historical period, Final Fantasy XVI delivers on all fronts in an epic and cinematic way. This entry has already been compared to one of the biggest fantasy hits of all time, Game of Thrones, primarily due to its more mature storytelling and shocking amounts of gore in a world that shares similar qualities and themes like usurping power. At the forefront of this tale is Clive Rosfield, a soldier in an empire that betrayed his family and older brother to Joshua Rosfield, who wields the power to transform into a giant phoenix icon creature. As usual with Final Fantasy, the quests are plenty here. But what's even more plenty are the lengthy cutscenes you get immersed in, with cinematic strikes and evasions also factoring into the gameplay combat. There's something truly special about the story of the Phantom Thieves. Persona 5 Royal is a unique JRPG that has brought the Persona series to many new heights since the launch of the original title in 2017. A cast of characters, all with some personal trauma to overcome, band together to essentially make the world a better place by displacing the dark desires of the adults in their lives. With a focus on creating and evolving relationships while delving into some seriously difficult themes, the story told here as the Phantom Thieves navigate life in an unfair world will truly change your heart by the end of the game. A game doesn't need an expansive cast or intense dialogue to tell a powerful story. When done correctly, something beautiful can be found in nothing more than a lost cat. Stray takes that concept and refines it into something truly memorable. You play as a cat in a world where humans no longer exist. After falling down some ruins, you find yourself deep in an underground city, where the robotic servants of the now-gone people continue to live and operate. Your only goal is to get back to the surface. Where Stray really shines is in the environment you explore throughout the story. Concepts blend seamlessly, creating an awe-inspiring backdrop of steam, rust, and neon lights. Your goal may be simple, but you'll see a vibrant and living world telling its own story along the way. Disco Elysium offers you an unprecedented level of choice in how you play it. Every single action or decision you make has a big impact on how the rest of the game plays out. You play as a detective tasked with solving a murder while trying to put together his fractured memory. All of this occurs in a world torn apart by a war years before, which has left things in a pretty terrible state. Surprisingly for an RPG, Disco Elysium has no combat instead. It focuses on decision making and having you respond appropriately to events that take place within the world. It's a lot of reading, but the final cut includes a brilliantly performed narrator for every bit of dialogue. Disco Elysium has one of the best stories in modern gaming and is a refreshing addition to the PS5 lineup. Originally launched in 2006, Persona 3 is more of a niche favorite in the Persona series. While Persona 4 and Persona 5 usually get all the praise, the re-emergence of Persona 3 in Persona 3 Reload brings several updates to bring the older title up to date with the likes of the Persona 5 style and setup. With gorgeous graphics, a unique way of calling Persona forth, and a story that starts off slow but builds to an intriguing climax, it's well worth your time. It's coupled with the fact the game is finally available on modern consoles for actually being able to play, and with 3 different versions of the game available, you'll notice several upgrades that show how much time and effort went into Reload. As usual, you'll take on the role of a protagonist you name as they transfer to a new high school, encounter strange occurrences as soon as they arrive, and uncover the story and mystery behind the events on Tatsumi Port Island.